Hey there, everyone. Welcome inside the Bayhackle Sports Studio for the latest episode of Game On. I'm Jeff Taylor alongside Jack Taylor. And for all the high schools in our area, the football regular season, Jack, is done.
Yeah, already in a blink of an eye, and that means the postseason runs for championships have begun. And for some sports, the postseason is already over as well.
Exactly.
It's that time of the year where everything's starting to round out. So let's tell you about some of the state champions that were crowned a little later.
Yep.
But for now, it's time to take
Football
a look back at last Friday night and the first round of the state playoffs on the gridiron.
And we start with the 1 seed in the West, the Weddington Warriors playing host to Providence, and this one would go to the favorite. Early on the first drive for the Warriors, Tyler Budge hands off to Nick Diamond, who toughs it out, and that puts Weddington inside the red zone. A few plays later, Budge from 12 yards out hits Diamond, who takes it in for Weddington. They were up 7-0 early on, and they would not slow down on either side of the ball. The defense coming up tough. Jackson DB for the Panthers has nowhere to go. He gets sacked. Providence only scoring 7 on the night. Then the Warriors back on the offensive side of the ball. Tyler Budge rolls to his right, can't find anyone, decides to take it himself for the score right there. Weddington wins this one big, 42-7 to advance to round number 2.
Next up, Marvin Ridge hosting Mallard Creek. Marvin Ridge playing at home after a big win last week against that number 1 seed. So late in the first half, Marvin Ridge down 24-0. Evan Metters connects with Jake Shoemaker, who will get out of bounds around the 1. Next play, everyone bunching together, the Philly special. This becomes a scrum like rugby, and Evan Metters will score. He's in that pile somewhere, I guess. Second half, Mallard Creek does not slow down. On a 3rd and 1, Tyreek Brown gets the handoff, seems to be stopped, but pops somehow out of the pile, racing 55 yards in the end zone, untouched. The Creek up 31-7. Marvin Ridge offense could never really get going, and Mallard Creek is going to lay out all the hits, all the stops on defense to win this one big, 41-7 over Marvin Ridge to advance.
Meanwhile, Myers Park hosting Charlotte Catholic. The Cougars brought the whole band and belief in themselves and trying to pull the upset. After Jack Larson fueled first half, the defense ready to roll. Zach Noonan on a joyride to the end zone with the play there. Charlotte Catholic with an epic performance last Friday night. Wendell Thompson and the Mustangs credit in the fourth quarter. They put up some fight. The touchdown pass is caught by the amazing Miles Bauckham, but that's where the good times stopped rolling for Myers Park. Catholic's defense was ferocious all night long. Frank Brewer is going to come up with the sack for Charlotte Catholic right there. And then John Filijakowski, the interception and the celebration. 42-24, Charlotte Catholic with the round 1 knockout of Myers Park. Now, that's a lot of action, and of course, to help us break down a little more from what happened this past week in the playoffs and a look ahead to this Friday night's second-round playoff games, we're joined by Daron Vaught of Bayhackle Sports, who you can catch every Friday night on our Bayhackle Sports Game of the Week. Daron, how are you today, my friend?
I'm great as always. Appreciate the invite. I got my bonus hour of sleep fired up for round 2 coming up this Friday.
Exactly. Hey, so let's start off by talking about last Friday night's game of the week, and that was between Indy and Lake Norman, the first round of the playoffs. Both teams came into this one losing a tough regular season finale. Coach McFadden and the Patriots, however, got redemption, and they get the first round win against Lake Norman. Give me your thoughts on that game.
Yeah, it was interesting coming in because we had been at Lake Norman. We rarely are in the same place 2 weeks in a row for our Bayhackle Sports Game of the Week, but that was the case because we had Mooresville at Lake Norman the week prior to round out the regular season. So as you alluded to, the Lake and Independence coming off of big rivalry losses as Indy dropped their final game of the regular season to Butler. And look, for Mooresville, it was a packed house at Lake Norman, something like 4,400 pre-sale tickets sold. It was a good crowd when it eventually filled in at the lake on Friday, but it was less than, we'll just say, right? Far fewer tickets sold prior to kickoff, just not quite as much buzz. And with Lake Norman, they've had some injuries, particularly at the quarterback position. Haynes Robitzer was their starter for most of the year. They used Bennett Portero as their backup quarterback. He started in that Week 10 game against Mooresville. And Jonathan Oliphant, their head coach, who I think is as much of a gamer as there comes in high school football in our area, he can really will his way to a win. And just by altering the smallest pieces here or there, he decides to go with Kavin White, who is an athlete, as he's listed on the roster as a defensive back, but can play quarterback, has played before, but hadn't this season. Actually was hurt with a dislocated ankle earlier in the year that miraculously did not require surgery. White's a tremendous player, a tremendous athlete, but that's a lot to put on a guy. Your first start as quarterback heading into a round one playoff game against a big-time power like Indy, maybe coming in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder after the loss to Butler. They felt maybe that they were a little slighted as well as a number 23 seed. So they're going to have to do it as the underdogs. But the Patriots, they have a belief that they can do it. And, I mean, it really showed. They executed in every facet of the game and dominated Lake Norman.
Daron, you mentioned that seeding and how they felt they kind of were maybe underhanded a little bit. They're traveling to East Forsyth. Do you think they might have been put in a position to make a couple upsets throughout this postseason?
Yeah, I think, Jack, it's less about them being put in a position to and them being good enough to is what it's more about, you know? I mean, I think Independence, especially with their experience in certain positions, Justin Little is their junior quarterback. He started as a sophomore a year ago and got them to the playoffs. He's their leader offensively. They've got, you know, guys like Quentin and Nick Reddish on defense who are great players as well on that side. And Nick, of course, return man, is present on special teams as well. I think the one thing, too, is that Coach McFadden's been here before. Remember, the last time we were regularly talking about Independence as a playoff power, he was in that mix for a couple of years as their starting quarterback. And in those couple of years, I think this is right, they didn't lose a single game with McFadden at the helm. So he knows what it's like to be in these situations, to accurately portray that to his players. And he knows at the end of the day that the seeding doesn't quite matter. I mean, it does for terms of, you know, they're going to the Triad rather than hosting East Forsyth this weekend. But, you know, what's the difference between a 7 seed and a 23 seed? It all depends on your competition throughout the year and how you perform against the better teams on your schedule. I mean, this is an Indy team that was tested very heavily, very early in its schedule, and that sort of competition early on for them is paying dividends.
So round one is done. This coming Friday night is round two of the playoffs. Our Bay Sports Game of the Week will be a neighborhood rivalry in the private school side as Providence Day takes on Charlotte Christian in the semifinals. What can we expect to see in this one, you think, Daron? I think I know what we're going to get.
Look, it's based on, we had this game last year when it was for the NCISAA state championship between these two. Jaden Davis and company of Providence Day handled their business accordingly. They are coming in with, you know, they have won 2 consecutive state titles in NCISAA, and the matchup at home for them against Raven Gap earlier in the season, in which they lost to Raven Gap, has sort of put them in the passenger seat in terms of making it a three-peat. If they're going to have a chance to travel to Georgia and play Raven Gap on their home turf to earn that 3rd consecutive state title, Christian is one of the schools they're going to have to go through. They have rocked them before in years past. I think it's easy to understand why one might think, okay, this is just a collision course between Raven Gap and Providence Day. But we've seen crazier things happen.
Absolutely. Well, Daron, let's throw a few more of those crazy games at you as we head into week 2 of the playoffs. So how about Chambers heading to Weddington?
I love this matchup, guys. This is so fun to me. Weddington, huge power. Obviously, we've had them on our game of the week as well as Chambers this season, so we've gotten a pretty good look at what each of these teams can be. Weddington was one of the area teams that took itself the farthest into the playoffs a season ago. Chambers is always fast. They're always physical. Huge difference for them this year. A bona fide, legitimate quarterback in Trey Robinson. That guy is a difference maker. He can do it with his arm. He can do it with his legs. This is such an intriguing matchup to me. It's tough to say impression-wise what I think we're going to get. Weddington, I know, is tough to topple at home. That, I think, is going to make a difference for them in this game. But, man, this one could get really, really, really exciting.
So one that intrigues me also is Porter Ridge. They take on the Huff Huskies. Porter Ridge has played some good ball. How does this one shake out, you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, too, because Huff sort of quietly, right, under Deshaun Baker, their first-year head coach, following in the footsteps of Matt Jenkins, has put together a really nice season. And they are a really good, really complete team, as we're used to. They're just kind of like a little under the radar because of maybe some of the performances of other teams. And Porter Ridge, I mean, they live under the radar, it feels like. Michael Hurts has done such a good job with that team. We know a couple of things about them. They don't surrender a lot of points, as they, got a shutout in their first-round victory over Cuddy. But they also turn the ball over a lot. And that helps their offense in ways that, a good offense cannot make up for the good that a defense does for it by giving it a short field because of turnovers, right? And again, Porter Ridge has been a team all year long that just finds a way. They've got a knack for turning the football over. So when you think about these playoff games, a couple of those big swings can be the difference for sure. And I think Huff is a team that at times has struggled with turning the football over and had to muck some games up to keep themselves in it. So it's intriguing to me. I think this one could be a really close game.
And then, Daron, one final one for you in the 3A. Northwest Cabarrus taking on J.M. Robinson, round 2.
Yeah, this one, I mean, come on. This means everything to the people of Concord. This is a rematch between these two teams. Robinson is undefeated. Northwest Cabarrus' only loss this season is to Robinson. Look, Robinson has surrendered 80 points all season long. They've played 11 games, so it's well below the 10-point per game mark, okay? Only two opponents have played them within a score. The first was Hickory Ridge, week 1, back in August. And the second and only other is Northwest Cabarrus. That was a 21-13 victory for Robinson. On the other side, Northwest Cap, 84 points allowed all season long. I mean, these two teams have served as the other's barometer all season long, because for each team, it's the only other team that they have faced with a winning record. Now that makes the big picture a little foggy when it comes to these two. How much can they impact the bracket as a whole past this game? Sure, you've got some question marks to be sorted out with that in mind. But in terms of these two head-on-head, I think it stacks up to be another really, really good game. Probably going to come down to the final possession and be determined by just one score.
Daron Vaught, as always, hey man, thanks for your time. Looking forward to hearing the call Friday night on our Bayhagel Sports Game of the Week between Charlotte Christian and Providence Day. You can catch it live on BayhagelSports.com this Friday night at 11. Also, you can check out Daron. He is the voice now of East Carolina, correct? Basketball.
East Carolina men's basketball. We open up the season tonight. They welcome Ferrum.
Hey, good luck, man. We appreciate your time. We'll see you Friday night.
Appreciate you guys, as always.
All right, now that we've done that, let's take a look at some of the second-round matchups that are set for this Friday night. And we've got a lot of previews and a lot to look at in terms of the boards here. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so we talked about it already. Chambers-Weddington, that matchup here at home. And they're going to be taking on the winner in the third round of that game below it. Charlotte Catholic, who had the big win against Myers Park, going up against T.C. Robertson. They're going to need to bring out another upset to get into the next round.
That's going to be a tough one. On we go for some more second round. Porter Ridge, the 12 seed, as we talked about there, traveling to Huff. We'll see how that one plays out. And then Sun Valley, still hanging tough. They take on Grimsley. Grimsley's tough. You're talking 13 seed versus the 14.
Yep, so
the 4 seed.
The winners of those two games will take on each other as well in that third round. As we continue on, Mount Tabor, the big upset they had against Davie County, going against Mooresville. Mooresville came down to the wire against A.L. Brown, so we'll see if that was more of a punch in the mouth or just some first round jitters. And then they'll be taking on the winner of the game below it as well. Butler easily handled Alexander Central. Figure they're probably going to do more of the same against West Forsyth.
Still the 6 seed. I don't get that one with Butler, but I guess it is what it is. Hey, some more second round matchups. Independence, we talked about it. DJ McFadden, the job he's done, a 23 seed. Listen, I think they can go into East Forsyth and get the win there. And then Mallard Creek, the coach there, Coach Tinley, great job, 18 seed going to Watauga. Could they pull an upset the way they played this past Friday night? I was there. against 2 seed, they could.
And Watauga, they were pretty, slow going against Hickory Ridge, who almost got the win over them, and they were winning at halftime.
Yep.
So you could see another upset there, and of course the winners of those 2 games will take on each other as well. Now into 3A, you see Crest, number 1 seed, taking on Statesville, who was barely able to push away South Point to get into the second round. And then you've got West Charlotte getting the win over High Brighton. Again, those two games play each other for the winner in that next round.
And that 8-9 game could be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Then another one for you in the 3A West Region second round.
Talk about it.
Yep, we talked about it. Northwest Cabarrus taking on J.M. Robinson. Listen, J.M. Robinson, they put up points. They get out of the gate fast. That 5 seed, maybe they could be higher. We'll see how they do against Northwest Cabarrus. That could be, like I said, it's a rematch. We'll see what happens there.
Then moving on, you got East Lincoln, the defending state champs, able to push past into the second round. They got the upset over the team they were taking on as they were the lower seed. They're going to have to try to do it again against West Henderson at the 3 seed. So reigning state champs in 3A trying to stay alive.
And on we go with some matchups. Second round, again, 3A, Kings Mountain. Listen, I love those guys. They play tough football going against AC Reynolds, the 10 and the 7 seed. Kings Mountain can play some football.
They're not going to have a more fun matchup than they did against Smoky Mountain. They're not going to have a better matchup in terms of that, but they're going to have some high-flying games. And we've got Monroe right down the road.
2A now.
Yep, hosting West Lincoln in the 2A West region. So Monroe continuing to battle on. We saw they've been doing all year long. See how they continue to push through into the bracket.
Right, and now I think we have a couple more 2A for you in the West region. East Surrey. Community School of Davidson, the 14 and the 3 seed, and then Forest Hill against Randleman. Forest Hill, they've played some good ball, so we'll see how they do there.
And those 2 teams, of course, like you said, will be playing each other. The winners of those 2 games will be playing each other in that third round.
Yep.
And then one last one in the 2A for you. Lincolnton pulling off the upset.
They did pull that upset.
Pushing into the second round. They're going to have a tough opponent, though, in Shelby.
Shelby plays some football, and they have a rich football tradition, so we'll see what happens there on that one. And then 1A for you. Let's talk about the 1A West Region second round. Mountain Island Charter going against Robbinsville. That's a tough deal for them going up against that 1 seed. And then Swain County, Bessemer City. You got to love the 8-9s. That always they always provide good ball games when you get those 2 seeds battling it out.
Absolutely. It's a little bit more in the 1A now. You got Corvian Community going up against North Rowan, a 4 and a 20 seed. Darren talked about, where the seedings kind of matter, how they fall. So it's always interesting to see matchups like these, how far apart their margins actually are.
And the lower seed has nothing to lose, so you can always see what happens there. Then we go to the private schools. Raven Gap, we talked about them. It looks like Providence Day and Raven Gap are on that collision course for the finals. But Raven Gap hosts Christ School, the 4 and the 1, and then Providence Day Charlotte Christian, our game of the week on BayHackleSports.com. So, hey, all the top 4 seeds right there, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, we've got more than just high school football for you. We've got some middle school playoffs as well for their inaugural state championship tournament. The first round concluded last Saturday, so let's take a look now at the semifinal matchups coming at you.
You got Piedmont and J.M. Alexander. They'll match up against each other, and then Rance and Crestdale. It's a great matchup, and kudos to CMS for doing something like that. And if I'm correct, it's Philip O'Berry.
Yep,
where they play.
Philip O'Berry High School. It was at Olympic for the first round. Now Philip O'Berry for this one. So both of those games this coming Saturday should be some good matchups.
And like I said, it's awesome to see the middle schoolers get their shot at getting a championship. So now, for all your playoff highlights and scores, make sure you check out the Blitz this coming Friday night. And we want to let you know that this Friday night, you can catch the show at 11 o'clock on BayHackleSports.com, but something a little different. You can also catch it on WCCB right after the 10 o'clock news, so make sure you tune in. And stick around. We have more for you for Game On coming up right after the break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Game on BayHackleSports.com is brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina.
Hey everyone, welcome back inside the BayHackle Sports Studio. I am BayHackle Sports Director Jeff Taylor alongside BayHackle Sports Anchor Jack Taylor. And we've talked football and all the playoff action that's set for this coming Friday night, but we have more for you.
Yeah, now we're going to turn our attention to boys soccer, who are starting their third round of the playoffs this week as it's time to enter the goal zone.
And this is second round action from this past week. Our first matchup is Hickory Ridge, who took on Northwest Guilford. This one was all the Ridge, as they won 5-0. They were led in scoring by George Barube, who had the hat trick on the night. Caden Finney and David Pirantoni each added 1 goal apiece. Hickory Ridge advances to round 3. Up next is Indy taking on West Forsyth. In this one, the Patriots of Independence get the 3-1 win. The Patriots would get 2 goals from senior Aaron Zhu and another from Rue Ray. This game was tied 1-1 at the break, but Indy would dominate the second half to advance to the next round of the playoffs. And on we go with second round action. It was Audrey Kell hosting Asheville. The Knights, the 5 seed, would advance after the 2-0 victory. The Knights scored first to go up 1-0. Asheville would come back to tie it. It was 1-1 at the break, but AK gets a goal in the second half to secure the win and advance in front of the home crowd. On to Cuthbertson taking on Cox Mill in the second round, and this one was a thriller. Cuthbertson was up 1-0 at the break. Cox Mill would come back late to tie it at 1-1 when regular time expired. After extra time, this one would go to a shootout, and Cuddy wins the shootout 3-1 to win the game and advance. More for you as South Meck traveled to Hopewell for a second round matchup. The Sabres jumped out and led 2-0 at the break. Hopewell would score 1 goal in the second half, but that would be all for them. South Meck with the big win to advance to the third round of the state playoffs.
And now let's take a look at some of the matchups in the third round currently underway. You got the number 16 seed Porter Ridge going up against the number 24 seed South Meck. Then a close matchup as number 5 Audrey Kell takes on number 4 Cuthbertson. And then you've got a close battle between number 3 Hickory Ridge and number 11 Lake Norman. And last, but certainly not least, number 10 Weddington versus number 18 Independence. And of course, the fourth round kicks off on Thursday.
Now, while the boys' soccer playoffs roll on, there were a few state champions crowned this past weekend. In the 4A girls volleyball playoffs, the Middle Creek Mustangs defeated Cox Mill to win the state title, while in the 3A matchup, Kings Mountain defeated Orange in a 5-set thriller to claim the state championship on the 3A side.
Wow, and we also crowned state champions in cross country as Marvin Ridge won the 4A title on the boys' side, while Cardinal Gibbons beat out the 5-time champions Cuthbertson on the girls' side.
Big upset there. Now on the tennis courts, the girls from Myers Park, they won their 3rd state championship on Saturday with a 5-4 win over New Hanover, while in the 3A bracket, Lake Norman Charter won its first ever tennis title. Congrats to all the state champs crowned over the past few days. And for a list of all the state champs at all levels in all the sports, head over to the North Carolina High School Athletic Association website. Hey, stick around. We still have a lot more for you on Game On. Coming up, next we'll introduce you to a Bulldog who has quite the bite on the football field. Stay tuned. More Game On coming at you next.
Game On BayHackleSports.com is brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Game On, where each Monday we bring you the best highlights from the week before and get you set for the week ahead.
And as always, we like to introduce you to some of the high school athletes in our area making a name for themselves. So this week, Bayhackle Sports anchor John Treach introduces us to a Butler Bulldog making an impact out on the gridiron.
One of North Carolina's most successful powerhouses isn't bougie, it's Butler. A place where the talent is matched by the toughness and hype is punctuated with hunger. No one embodies the Butler way more than Daquadre Currence.
Even on and off the field, I know how to handle adversity. I know how to treat certain situations, and I have a mature mindset.
And one of the biggest schools in the state, Currence stars in basketball, runs track, and cuts like a Butler butcher on Friday night. He's affectionately known as Red. It's for the hue in his hair, but it really should be for Red Alert. Stop him if you can.
Red does everything for the team. Goes to defense, offense, special teams, he does it all. And even if he gets hit hard, bounce straight back up.
Red is resilience. The 16-year-old and his 3 siblings have been raised by a single mom doing her best. Often, that meant bouncing from one home to another.
It was never really stable. It was like probably never stayed at a place no longer than 2 years. So like after a year or 2, it was boom, another spot.
Red's mother kept fighting, and she raised a fighter, one that's undersized but overwhelmingly grateful.
I'm working as hard as possible, taking all the steps she's given me, taking all the help she's given me to just be a better man in life, make her proud.
Currence with no true currency, Red is invaluable to Butler as one of the best players in the state, and yet no scholarship offers.
That's what's frustrating with a kid like Red. I mean, you put the film on, and there's not a better football player around. I think coaches probably aren't doing their homework, and they're not watching film because there's no way you've watched this kid's film and you don't think he could play for you. I don't care who you are.
Butler embarks on a quest for state title number 3. The entire playoff bracket will be seeing Red and thinking this Bulldog is unbelievable.
And what a great story by John Treach. And I've watched that kid play a couple of Friday nights, and the kid can ball out. And the fact that he doesn't have any scholarships yet, somebody's missing the boat.
Yeah, it's interesting to see why they're not seeing him. I mean, you have to be able to see him if you're just looking at the tape. He pops out, he stands out, red's all over the field, so someone's got to get their eye on him.
And kudos to his mom. And just the story itself, and everything he's overcome, his toughness, it shows on the football field.
Absolutely.
Every Friday night. Hey, stick around. We have one more segment of Game On coming up next. We'll tell you about all the action you can catch live next week on BayHackleSports.com. We'll be right back as Game On rolls on.
Game on BayHackleSports.com is brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Game On. I'm Jeff Taylor. That's Jack Taylor. Just a quick reminder that this week you can catch some exciting high school sports action on BayHackleSports.com as we live stream a couple of big events for you.
Yeah, that's right. And it starts tonight as we will bring you soccer playoff action. The Audrey Kell Knights travel to Cuthbertson for a third-round playoff matchup. We will live stream that starting at 6 o'clock. And then the Friday night Bayhackle Sports Game of the Week is a private school semifinals matchup as Charlotte Christian travels the short 2 miles to take on Providence Day. Kickoff set for 7 o'clock on BayhackleSports.com.
So, and a quick reminder, this Friday night at 11, you'll be able to catch the Blitz on both BayHackleSports.com and WCCB starting at 11 p.m. as we bring you the best highlights and all the scores from Friday night's second-round playoff matchups and a recap of our Game of the Week. So, that is a wrap for this week's Game On. Make sure you stick with Bayhackle Sports throughout the week for all your high school sports coverage. Have a great week. We'll see you Friday night on the Blitz. Take care.